Good day, everyone. This is Mr. H, the Fine Arts Instructor. I'm here today to give you an example of how to start creating a slightly more complex design in two-point perspective. And what we're going to do is we're going to work on combining some of the skills we've learned into creating a house in two-point perspective. So the first thing I'm going to suggest is, since this is going to be on a larger sheet of paper and it's going to be more of a final design rather than a skill practice, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a couple of post-it notes, and we're going to be attaching post-it notes off the side of your paper. So we'll put them behind the paper and stick them down. And what we're going to do is put our vanishing points off of the paper over here on one of these post-it notes. So I'm going to make myself a very light mark at the halfway point of my paper. And this is just me choosing to go at the halfway point. So if you want to make your vanishing points higher than center or lower than center, you can do that. If you put it up higher than center, that's going to make it look like you're looking down upon the scene as if you're a bird up in the sky. And that's called bird's eye view perspective. If you put it down low, it's called a worm's eye view, because it's like you're down on the ground and looking up at something much taller than you. And if you put it in the center, like we've been doing, that's just a standard view. So this is a 12-inch high piece of paper. That makes it easy. I'll just make my center point right here at 6 inches. Now this isn't going to be my vanishing point. This is just to help me out when it comes to making my vanishing points appear off the paper on my post-it. So I make that 6-inch mark on both sides of the paper. And then I'm going to make one near the center. It doesn't have to be exactly in the center. That's kind of up to you. And the reason why we want one in the center is because the longest ruler I have to use is an 18-inch ruler. And so we'll need to have our post-it notes out here, and we're going to line up this mark with this mark in order to put my vanishing point off the paper over here, and do the same thing with these two marks to put my vanishing point off the paper on the other side. So what we're going to do next is we're going to place those two post-it notes. And it doesn't really matter. You don't have to make it like measured and start at a specific height. As long as your post-it note is on the edge of your paper somewhere, and you'll be able to make a mark out here, you'll be fine. Now the next step to pushing my vanishing point off the edge of the paper is to grab my 18-inch ruler. So with my 18-inch ruler, I'm going to line up the edge of the ruler with these two marks, as I mentioned a moment ago, and simply make my vanishing point all the way at the edge of the post-it note. Now make it one dot, and don't make the dot super huge. I'm going to make it larger so that you'll be able to see it. But you want to keep that dot small, and that way it's going to be one precise point that all those diagonals will be pointing towards. We'll do the same thing on the other side, lining up the center and left mark and marking my vanishing point over here. Now, what is the purpose for putting these vanishing points off the paper? Well, remember, if you have got a vanishing point that is right at the edge of your paper, and you have a circle that touches its edge to those two vanishing points, anything that's at the edge of that circle or beyond the circle is going to be looking out of perspective. So by pushing our vanishing points off the edges of the paper, that allows for that circle to be so big that there won't be anything anywhere on this whole piece of paper that looks distorted or out of perspective. So in other words, it's just a way to make sure that everything comes out looking tight and right and not a little bit weird. Now, the first step to drawing our house is that we're going to draw a straight up and down line. So remember the rules that we've learned prior. To get a straight up and down line, you want to use the bottom of your ruler and just look at the gap at the bottom of your ruler. Make sure it's not at an angle. So if you see a small gap and a big gap, you know you're not straight up and down. If it looks even, that gap all the way across, you know you're pretty close to perfect or perfect. And I'm going to make the front corner of my house. So it's going to go a little bit higher than my vanishing point, and it's going to end a couple inches away from the bottom of the paper. Now remember, you don't have to use any specific measurements for these lines. As long as you're following the rules of perspective, your house should look good. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the top and the bottom of the house. And that's going to be going towards the right vanishing point on the right side and towards the left vanishing point on the left side. So just the same thing that we learned in the very first perspective video is going to be true in this one as well. So I'll make the house look as long as I want the front of the house to look. That's totally up to me, or up to you in the case of you doing your project. And then I'll make the line that goes towards that right vanishing point from the other side of my vertical line. And remember, you're going to the dot, not to this little mark over here. If it helps you to erase that mark so that you don't make that mistake, then yeah, go ahead and erase it. So I'll draw my line defining the top edge of the building. Now this one is going to be lighter because it will eventually get erased. I'm going to put a roof above the building. And then I'll make my straight up and down line to go right in between. Now, if you watched the other video, I did show you how to draw roofs, but I'm going to go through that process again in this video as well. So if you missed watching the how to draw a roof video, you can go back and watch it, or you can just follow along with me on this drawing. All right, so now I'm going towards my left vanishing point for the left side of this building. And then connecting those two marks together with a straight up and down line. If I have any excess anywhere, go ahead and erase those, just like we did in those basic rectangular forms. All right, so now we have the basic building shape, and what we've got to do next is we got to figure out where the center of this side is if we want that triangular roof shape to be above that side. So to find the center, we're going to be breaking that rule, because remember the rule is if it doesn't go straight up and down, it goes to a vanishing point. Well, we're going to be breaking that rule. This is one of the first exceptions to that rule that I talked about. So we just line up the two corners, the upper left and the lower right, and you don't have to draw an X all the way from corner to corner. You just want to make a light line near the middle somewhere, and then you're going to do the same thing from this corner and this corner. And wherever those two lines cross over each other, that's the center of this side of the building. And now I can draw a straight up and down line coming up from that center. Now I can go all the way from the X, or if I want to, I could just draw it up above, up here where we will actually need it. And anywhere above along this line is where you can make the angle representing the top of the roof. So you can make the roof higher, you can make the roof lower, or anywhere in between that you might prefer. So the higher the roof line is, though, the easier it'll be for some of the later steps. So I'm just going to make this line go a little bit taller and make that a nice high roof line. And then we're going to be breaking the rule again, because we're going to be going from somewhere along this line to this corner, and then somewhere along this line to that corner in order to create the front edges of the roof. So when we do this, we are going to go past the corner of the building just by a little bit. And I'm going to darken up that line because this line is going to be remaining. It's not going anywhere. And then we'll do the same thing going off in this direction and intersecting with this corner right here. And same thing that we did on the right side. On the left, we're going to go past the corner of the building by a little bit. All right, so now that we've got the front roof line in, there's two different ways we can go to find the angle for the back over here. The cheater way that I talked about in the roof drawing video was to just get two rulers going in the same direction as each other, and as soon as it looks like the angles are about the same, then you can draw the, well, actually first you got to draw the roof line. Let me do that first. So this is just going to be the top edge of the roof line. It's going to go towards my left vanishing point to show it going back into space. And then you're going to connect this line up with this one with the diagonal. So this is the cheater method. So you can just put two rulers going in the same direction as each other. And as soon as that space in between the rulers looks the same, then you can draw the line. Now this is not technically correct. It's usually good enough. So if you wanted to draw the line right there now, you can. But I'm also going to prefer to do the actual official, real, perfect way to do it, which is to figure out where the other two sides of the building are that we can't see. So to figure out the other two sides of the building and where they're at, we're going to draw a line that comes from this corner and this corner towards my right vanishing point, and then from these two corners towards my left vanishing point. My ruler is just barely long enough to reach. And I'm drawing these lightly because they will be erased eventually. Now, what happens if your ruler is not long enough to stretch the whole way? Well, you can take two rulers. You can line them up like this so that their edges are aligned with each other, and then you can be on your vanishing point here and be on whatever line that you need to draw the corner from, or whatever corner you need to draw the line from, and you can draw that line. So it's a good way of kind of making do if you don't have a ruler that's long enough sometimes. And then now I'm going to go from these two corners towards my left vanishing point. Now, if I've done my job perfectly and I've got very accurate marks that I've been working with, then I'm going to end up finding out that the two corners that we've got, and this one should line up perfectly with each other. I'm not quite perfect though, so I'm just going to check and see where I might have been a little bit off. I think I see. I wasn't quite at the top corner of the building over here. Okay, so now I've got to put in a straight up and down line going between those two corners. So that's the back corner of our building now. So as you can see, it's almost like we've got a glass box for a building instead of one that has solid walls. So what we did over here, we went from corner to corner. In order to draw this X in the middle, we are going to do the same thing from these two corners right here and right here. And remember, you don't have to go all the way from corner to corner. You're looking for a little X in the middle of that side of the building. All right, so there's the middle of the building for the side that we can't see. We're going to draw a straight up and down line. And whenever that straight up or wherever that straight up and down line hits, right up there, that's where the diagonal is going to come from for this edge right here. And now we can draw it. Now, I don't have to worry about drawing the other side of the roof. It's not going to be visible. It's behind the roof. It's behind the building. We're not going to see it. So at this point now, we've got a finished roof line except for two things. We need to know where your eaves end right here. So that's the part that hangs past the edge of the building for the roof. And then where it's going to end over there as well. So I'm going to draw a line going towards my left vanishing point for the left side of the building. And that's where my eaves are going to end. To figure out how long this one is, line up this corner with the right vanishing point, and that shows us where we need to be on that side. So that corner lines up with my right vanishing point, so this is how long the eave will be on that side. By coincidence, I made it pretty much perfect. That eave is going to go towards the left vanishing point until it disappears behind the building. All right, so we've now got our finished roof and we can get rid of all the unnecessary details that we don't need anymore. So any of the lines that represented the invisible side of the building that was not going to be visible, wow, that was really saying the same thing twice, can be erased. The little X in the middle I can erase. The X determining the center of the side of the building we can't see can be erased. The top of the building can be erased because it's behind our roof. So we're just getting rid of all of those lines that we don't need anymore, leaving behind a nice house shape. Okay, so now that we've got that basic house shape drawn, we can go in and we can start adding details to it. So typically on a house, you're going to end up having the doors and windows all coming up to the same height. So the tops of the doors and windows, let's say, might be coming up to this height. Then you might have a couple of additional windows up here. So when you're drawing the windows and doors, in order to keep them starting and stopping at the same heights as each other, you can make marks on the front corner of your building. So let's say I want to make my doors be this high. I can give myself a mark for that. Let's say I want my windows to end at this height. And then for the second story, we can go ahead and make some similar marks. So maybe I'll make my windows be going from here to here in height on the second floor. So what we're going to do next is we're going to use these marks. We're going to line them up with the vanishing point. We're going to use those to define the tops and bottoms of the windows and the door. So I'll go to my right vanishing point. Why? Because I'm on the right side of the building. And I'll just start a little distance from the edge of the building, and then I'll stop a little distance from the opposite edge of the building. This space on this side should be a little bit bigger than the space on that side. Why? Because as things get further and further away in space, they become less and less tall and less wide. And then we'll draw the same line down here for the bottom of the windows. And then we can do the same thing for the tops of the windows over here. So we'll line up our ruler with that line that I made right there and draw another nice long line. Now, I'm not going to use the bottom of the window yet because I think I'm going to put in my door first, and that way I'm not drawing a line through the middle of my door for a window that won't be there. So the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to create that door. So a door should be somewhere near the center of our building. And if I can still see a little bit of where my X was in the middle right here, then I can use that to help me. So I'll just make a line on either side of that X. Make sure your line looks straight up and down. Don't allow it to be at a slight angle. And make your door stretch all the way from the bottom of the building all the way up to the line defining the height of the window and the door. I'll make another one right over here, doing the same thing. All right, so I've got a single wide doorway instead of like a double door or a sliding door or anything. And now I can put in the line helping to define where the bottom of the window will be for the bottom story. I can stop a little distance between the door, and that way I don't have to erase a little line right there. And I can start on the other side and continue until I get right before the edge of the building. And remember, to avoid having to erase any excess, I'm just leaving those areas blank, so I don't have to do any unnecessary erasing. All right, now at this point, I can start drawing the straight up and down lines defining the widths of the windows. Now, one thing I like to do is I like to make the windows all at the same time. So if we have one edge of the window right here, we're going to continue that line down here without moving our window, and that way they line up with each other. But first, let's determine how wide we want our windows to be. So the window that's closest to us, the one that's the tallest, is going to be also the widest. So I'll have a window that's, let's say, line up my ruler with this mark. I'll have my window stop right about here. The one that's further away is going to appear smaller because it's less tall, it's further away it's further away in space, therefore it's less tall and less wide. So this one is going to be going between these two marks. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and make those straight up and down lines from those marks that I just used or just created, and that's going to be to create the top and bottom of my windows. So I'll have my line go like this and like this. And then we'll do another one, lining up with this mark. If I have a little line that I need to erase, I can always erase that to separate it from the doorway. Then I'll make the other window, lining up with this mark. And our last window right over here. If I have any little marks that I need to erase, I can do that. Now, we can create a third window in the middle, and if I decide that I want to have that, then I'm going to make it look less wide. So I'm just going to line up the sides of the door or line up my ruler with the side of the door to draw this line and to draw this line, and therefore we'll have a skinny window kind of above the door. Then I can erase the lines that are no longer necessary. So let's say that you would like to also have a window frame and maybe some cross pieces in your windows. That's something you can absolutely do. So I'm going to make a mark right here on the front edge of my building. I'll make another mark at the bottom that's got the same height. I'll do the same thing down here with the same height again, and another one right down here, and then I can use those marks, lining up with my right vanishing point again, to draw the windowsill. Now, the greatest part about working from a video is that you can pause whenever you need to in order to catch up. So if it takes you a moment to get going what I got going here, feel free to take that moment. Just pause the video and then restart it when you're ready for the next steps. All right, so I've got the horizontal parts of the windowsill. Of course, it's going diagonally towards the vanishing point, but that's because of the perspective that we're working in. It's something called foreshortening, where things look shorter, less wide as they go off into the distance. Now all we have to do is to connect those marks together to finish off your windowsill. Make sure these lines are nice and straight up and down. Draw this one and this one at the same time. That way they line up with each other. And then we'll do the next ones. Oh, you know what? I forgot to draw this line over here in my little small window. Let's do that real quick. So in every one of my videos, I usually make a mistake or two. Sometimes it's on accident, sometimes it's on purpose, but I always think it's valuable to show that not even the teacher is really perfect. Let's make a frame around the door too. So I think it's valuable to show mistakes being made because it's a good example that not anyone's perfect. Everybody needs to be cautious. Everybody needs to pay attention when they're doing their work. And that way, it comes out as nice as you're capable of making it. So don't think there's something wrong with you if you make a mistake at any time in a piece of art. Sometimes mistakes can actually be a learning experience, and sometimes it even works out better because if you make a mistake, sometimes it tells you kind of like, or leads you to a conclusion you would not have chosen otherwise. And they call that a happy mistake, when you make a mistake but it ends up improving your work instead. So never be afraid of mistakes. Mistakes are a part of life. All right, so we got our doorway there, and now we've got our windowsill over here to put in. And then our last windowsill. Okay, so at this point, we've got the basic windows, we got the windowsills. If we want to add cross pieces in our windows, we can do that. So that's totally an option if you want. If you'd rather leave them off, you can. Sometimes there might be a cross piece going in only one direction, so you can open the window, or it might be in this direction, so you can open it to the left or to the right. So it's kind of up to you whether or not you want to add those cross pieces. If you do, then you're still going to make them lining up with your vanishing point on the right side for the horizontal line, and for the vertical line, it would go towards your straight up and down. So I'm going to make two really close together marks representing where that cross piece is going to be going, and then drawing it in. And remember, you choose whether you want to do that on your work or whether you want to have a different appearance. So if you just wanted to be able to lift your window and open it, but you didn't want like cross pieces going in the other direction, you could stop with this and that would be fine. If you wanted to make them open from left to right, then obviously you would have made it in the opposite direction, going vertically. but it basically would be fine too. So I made myself two little marks at the corner of my building, which I'll now use to put in the cross piece going in this direction on the bottom windows. Right, so I could leave it like that, or I could do the cross pieces in the other direction. I think I'm going to do the cross pieces in the other direction, and you can do the same thing that we did for like these marks, where you try to figure out how wide they need to be compared to each other before you make the line. So those might be the locations for those lines on this window and the one underneath it. Over here, I'd be probably putting it right about here and right about here. Over here. I'm going to say right about there. And then draw those lines. Make sure your lines are perfectly straight up and down. Don't let them be a little bit crooked. Oops, it's a little crooked there. Oh, and you know what? I forgot to make the window down here, or the cross piece down there. So let's move it back over and do the other one as well. Okay, and then we'll do these two. And so remember that these panes of glass should be getting less and less wide as they go further towards the right-hand side, since we're on the right-hand side of the building. So if your panes of glass are not going from slightly larger and then smaller, you might need to modify the placement of your lines slightly to make that happen. Remember to make it down here as well. There we go. Okay, so our windows on that side are now done, and now I can do windows on the other side. And the purpose for making these marks in the front corner of my building was so that the windows on the other side can remain consistent in height as well. So that is something that you got to kind of think about when you're working on one of these pieces is, the placement on one side versus the other should look about the same or exactly the same. So now we can use those same marks to give ourselves some additional lines. Okay, so we have now completed our house with basic windows and a door. The only thing I would say is that it helps to have a door handle to be able to get into the house. So if I draw a little oval about at the halfway point, not a perfect circle, but an oval, and then make two tiny lines going towards my left vanishing point, that's going to make it look as if the oval is standing out from the background. In other words, there's the post that sticks out from the door that the handle attaches to. And then I'm going to make a tiny little curve going between those two lines. Now we've got our doorknob so that we can get into the house. So we'll just take a look at the house's roof here, and it looks like it's roughly 5 inches. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make marks every ½ inch. Okay. So what helps when you're trying to make these marks every ½ inch is to look down upon your ruler. And that way you're really making the marks evenly spaced. Sometimes if you look at your ruler at an angle, your marks might be off by 1 or 2/16 of an inch. And for those that aren't real handy with the ruler, 1/16 of an inch are all the teeny marks in the ruler. Well, actually, they're every single mark on the ruler. Each one of these is a 1/16. So I'm just going to make marks every ½ inch, and then we'll make those marks go towards your left vanishing point. Okay, and as we continue, we're going to start making a round window up here, kind of in the attic area. So I'm showing you this because there is a technical way that is correct to draw a circle in perspective. So I'm going to show you how to draw a circle on the side of an object, and perhaps later we'll figure out a way to draw a circle or a reason to draw a circle somewhere else to represent how to draw a circle when it's laying down on a flat surface. So when we're working on our circle in perspective, there's going to be a couple of different steps. The first step is going to be drawing an X. Second step is plus. Third step is diamond. Fourth step, I used to call tic-tac-toe. I now call it hashtag since the whole Twitter thing. And then the last step I nickname cornerstones. So let me show you exactly how to start creating each one of these steps. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a straight up and down, or 2 lines that go towards our right vanishing point. So those 2 lines, I can make them wherever I want. So I'm going to make one line right about here. I'm going to make the other line up higher. So these are both going towards my right vanishing point because I'm on the right side of my building. And then we're going to attach them together with 2 straight up and down lines. So you will want to draw these lines lightly. I'm drawing them dark enough so that you'll be able to see them on the screen, but drawing them lightly is going to make them more effective. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw an X within this space. And this X does go from corner to corner. So this is one of the exceptions. It's not going towards our vanishing points. After you've done your step 1, the X, you're going to do step 2, which is a plus. So we're going to make a straight up and down line that goes all the way from the top to the bottom of that box. And then we're going to draw the other direction of line, which is going to go towards your right vanishing point. So now that you've got your plus, you can make the diamond. And the diamond is going to go between the corners of the plus, or between the ends of the plus. Now it is really important that you're being as precise as possible when you're making these marks, because if you're a little bit off, it will throw off the accuracy of the circle somewhat. Now, when you're done drawing the diamond, what you're going to notice is that there are essentially 4 smaller X's. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what you're going to do is you're going to be making the centers of your straight up and down lines for your hashtag pass through the center of those X's. And then we're going to make 2 lines that also pass through the center of the X's. And these are going to go towards your right vanishing point, again, because you're on the right side of the building. Now, the next step is we're going to make lines that go between the corners of those ends of the hashtag, and that's going to be the cornerstone step. So I'm going to go between here and here, here and here, here and here, and here and here. A lot of you by now are going, oh my goodness, that is a lot of steps just to draw a circle. Are you crazy? No, but unfortunately, this is what you got to do to make an accurate circle in two-point perspective. And if you're drawing something like a car, it's really nice to be able to have those circles for the sides of your tires looking nice and accurate. So this is the technical way to do this, according to the rules of two-point perspective. All right, so we are now done with all those steps, and all we have to do from here is just to create the circle itself. The circle is going to go from the center, or from the top of the diamond to where the small X here is in the corner, so from the center of the cornerstone. It's going to go from the center of this cornerstone to the left side of the diamond, and then down to the lower left center of the cornerstone, to the bottom of the diamond, to the bottom of the lower right-hand cornerstone, or center of the lower right-hand cornerstone, to the center on the right side of the diamond, up to the center of the upper left cornerstone, and then back up to the top of the diamond where you started from. So those are the steps involved in drawing a circle in two-point perspective. Now, if you wanted to draw a longer looking circle, you could have made the box longer. If you wanted to have a wider looking circle, you could have drawn the box wider. So the steps remain the same, even if you want it to be more of an oval, stretch one way or the other. After you're done, you can get rid of the million billion lines that you'd created. Now, if I was wanting to get a window sill, or like a frame for the window, I would just draw one inside of what I've already created and not try to follow all those steps again, because that would be really, really, really annoying. And it's easy enough just to draw a line that goes in the same direction as this one, just a short distance away. So don't bother trying to draw all those steps again in order to have your windowsill. Just use the direction of the line that's nearest to it in order to create that instead. Bear in mind that it should get less wide as it goes further over. So I should have made this a little bit tighter of a space than this one. But be forgiving of yourself if you didn't make that happen. Okay, if I want to have a cross piece like the other windows did, I can put that in. So I can just make a line coming from here and here going towards my right vanishing point. And another two that go straight up and down. And that, folks, is how to draw your round window up in your attic area. So just remember the steps: X plus diamond, hashtag, and cornerstones. What we're going to be doing next with this video is we're going to be drawing a walkway and a sidewalk to make it so that our house feels approachable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up my ruler with the left vanishing point. I'm going to make a line that starts from both sides of the doorway where it hits the bottom of the building. So we're going to line that ruler up and simply draw this line. We're going to do the same thing one more time from the other side of the doorway. And that way our walkway feels appropriately sized for the size of the door. Now, the next thing is that we're going to be drawing two lines that go towards your other vanishing point that are going to run into those two lines that we just drew. This is going to be representing the walkway or sidewalk. So we'll draw them on either side right here. And then we'll just look at this gap and we'll try to guesstimate how wide the sidewalk should feel compared to that walkway. I feel like they should be about the same. So I'm trying to make this gap right here feel similar to that gap right there, and then draw the line. Now, after we get done with that, we're going to start to think about whether or not we want to have some additional details like a driveway. Well, if we're going to have a driveway, it's going to help to first have the grassy area between the sidewalk and the curb. So we're going to draw one more line going towards our vanishing point. This one might be a little bit wider than the sidewalk, and that's to represent that grassy patch. And then we're going to draw two more lines. So the first line is going to be representing the top edge of the curb. So this is going to be the top of the curb right here. And then we're going to have another line down here that's going to represent the height of the curb. All right, now that we've got those lines representing the sidewalk, the grassy area, and the curb, we can start to think about what else we want. So, and I'm thinking there might look good with like a driveway over here. So I'm going to draw two lines, one for one side of the driveway, one for the other side. And I'm going to start it right near my house, but make sure that there's, maybe some grass or something like that going between the driveway and the house. And one trick that you can think about if you ever run out of room, or run out of ruler, I should say, is that you can go ahead and line another ruler up with your first ruler. And then you can move that first ruler and you can continue drawing your line. And I'm going to draw this line until I get to the top edge of the driveway over there, or the top edge of the curb, I mean. Now I'll draw my other side of the driveway. Make sure that it looks much wider compared to our walkway. That way it looks appropriately sized for a car rather than just for a human walking. Draw that line. And then since I'm out of ruler, I can slide my other ruler right up to it. Then move the first one and continue that line. All right, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the straight up and down part of the curb. So I'm going to position my ruler in a straight up and down position, making sure to check the bottom of my ruler against the bottom of the paper. And if I'm close to the edge, I can check it against the edge as well. And I'm just going to drop that straight up and down line. And then I'm going to do the same thing back here. I'm going to flip around my ruler, and that way I can see where I'm going. And now I can see the edge of the paper to make sure that it really looks like it's going straight up and down, as well as examine the bottom of the ruler compared to the bottom of the paper. Now, the reason why I did this line right here and right over here was so that I can put in for my next step the angle of the driveway, because you don't want your person to have to, drive off the edge of the curb, right? So we can determine the edge of the angle of the driveway next. So I'm just going to erase the top two lines for the curb, and we're just showing where it basically meets the street. And then I can draw an angle from this corner towards this corner. And boom, we've got our driveway. Okay, so next thing is to try to determine what we want to do with the rest of this space. So I could do something like have a series of trees all planted in a row back here, and that might look kind of nice. So what I'll do is I'll give myself one line that represents where the bottom of the trees would be. And since my ruler isn't long enough, I can slide this one up to it. And then move it aside to finish drawing that line. Now this is going to be a light line because you want to be able to erase it. You just want to leave behind the trees, not a bunch of lines, right? So this is going to be representing where the roots meet the ground or where the tree trunk meets the ground. We can draw another line that's a little bit higher up. This one's going to be for where the foliage hits the trunk. And again, since I've run out of ruler, I can slide my other one up to it. Align them with each other. And then continue drawing that line. And then one more representing where the top of the foliage will be. So all three of these lines for the tree are going towards my vanishing point. All right, so the next step is to start drawing those trees. So all right, so we've got our line of trees. We can get rid of those guidelines anytime we want because they are no longer necessary. So maybe the next thing I'll do is I'll put in a chimney that's right over here on this side. So with the chimney, we're going to be having it come from behind the roof over here. So we're going to start it the same way we'd start everything else we've ever done that are based off of basic cubes or rectangles. We'll start with the front corner. So I lined up the bottom of my ruler with the bottom of the paper to ensure we're going straight up and down. Drew that line really dark. And then we can go ahead and draw the top, going towards the left or towards the right vanishing point, and then the left vanishing point. Now, depending on how large your drawing is, you can choose to draw the bricks that are making up the chimney, or if it's kind of a smaller drawing, you can choose not to. So I'm probably just going to leave off the bricks on this one because it's not a super huge drawing. We don't have a lot of room to make a bunch of little brick lines. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a hedge that's going to be growing beside the building over here. And the hedge is going to be roughly rectangular in form. And so the first thing we're going to do, normally we would draw this line or this line, that front corner, but I want my hedge to line up with the front of the building over here. So I'm actually going to draw the bottom right-hand side of the hedge instead. And I'm going to line up my ruler with the bottom of the building, and I'm going to draw it so that there's a little bit of a gap between the bottom of that hedge and the bottom of the building, and that way there's a little air gap and you don't start to have issues. All right, now the next step is we're going to draw this straight up and down line. This is the front corner of the hedge. And by the way, you're going to want to draw these lines light. And the reason why is because you're going to be kind of erasing them. You're going to make them look a little bushy like this. All right, now we're doing the top right edge of the hedge. Then we can draw the two lines going towards our left vanishing point from the top and bottom of our form here. If I want my hedge to line up with the back corner of the building, I can figure out where to make it this line end by lining up my ruler with this corner and this vanishing point. My ruler isn't quite long enough, so use my extending trick. Okay, so it looks like that corner is going to be right about there. So I've got to make my diagonal just a touch longer. That way it ends right where that mark was. I'm going to make this line go a little bit longer too. And then we can draw our straight up and down line in between. And we can draw our line going towards our other vanishing point. Blue is not quite long enough, so I'll line them up with each other again. I can draw my straight up and down line to stop my hedge right here. And now I can go towards my left vanishing point to create the top right back area of it. And now I've got a finished box or cube or rectangular form. We can get rid of the building inside of it, and now I can make it look bushy by adding in some bouncy organic lines to replace those straight ones. You can even give yourself a little bit more texture if you'd like. I think the next thing I'm going to draw is going to be the mailbox over here. So if I want the mailbox to line up with this corner, if I want the front center corner of the mailbox to line up with this corner, we're just going to make a straight up and down line somewhere above it. So lining up my ruler with that corner, making sure I have an even gap at the bottom of my ruler so I know my line is straight up and down. And we're going to basically draw a super teeny version of this, but without the bouncy organicness to it. So we'll draw that front corner, 2 lines that go towards our right vanishing point, 2 lines that go towards our left vanishing point. These 2 I'm going to make longer. This is going to be the depth of the mailbox. Might even make it a little bit longer than that. There we go. We'll cap it off with our straight up and down lines on the end. I need to extend this top line just a little bit longer to meet that straight up and down one. Now we're going to create the other side of the mailbox. So from the right side, I'll go towards the left. And from the left, I'll go towards the right. So again, we got our basic mailbox drawn here. Now we can just draw 2 straight up and down lines if you want like a pole at the bottom. And make a little curve at the bottom to show where the pole goes into the grass. And we've now got our mailbox there. If you want to make it look like the mailbox is open, then you could draw a line from this corner. I'm going to draw this line both inside of the front hole of the mailbox and past it. And then one from the other corner. And then one towards our right vanishing point. One of those has to extend just the teeniest bit longer. And there we go. Be to put in the horizon in the background, so it's only going to be where you can see it. So I'll take both of my rulers, that way I can line up both of them with the vanishing point. I can line up both vanishing points, I should say. I will draw my horizon where it's visible behind the tree over here. And then I'll draw it over here, coming out from behind the house. Now, are there other things I could do? Yes, I could put a car in the driveway. I could, put clouds in the sky, smoke coming out of the chimney, and you're welcome to draw those sorts of details if you'd like. So if you want to draw the smoke coming out of the chimney, you can do that. If you'd like to draw the grass, you can do that. How would you draw the grass? Well, you would kind of erase the back line of things because the grass might be blocking your view of it, and you can make kind of a zigzaggy line to replace it just to show that the grass is in front of the driveway in this case. Try not to make it super consistent. You don't want it to look patterny. And just think about the fact that as you get closer and closer in space, you're going to want to have the grass be taller. This is further away, so if we're going to have grass like along here, it's going to be taller and taller as it gets closer to the front. So Okay, so to finish off the look that we've got here, I think I'm just going to do like maybe one or two things. I'm going to get rid of these crisscrossing lines here where the sidewalk meets the driveway. I'm going to put in a little bit of grass between the roots of the trees back here. They're not real close, so that has to be a real small piece of grass, but that'll still help the roots to feel grounded and like they're a part of the scene. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be putting in some grass texture in the centers of areas like these. So back here we can have in just real small little hints of grass. Real small because this is really far back. You're not going to be seeing really much in this area. And you can space them out more and have them less and less frequent and just basically be dots as it goes real far back. For the closer areas here, we can see more of the zigzags of the grass. You don't want to make it look patterny, so just kind of make it look randomly placed. Remember that they should be bigger zigzags as you get closer to the front of the image. Now, if this corner over here feels too empty, one thing you can do is you can think about putting in maybe the neighbor's driveway or something. So you're not really going to see much of it. In fact, you could probably only draw just one side of it and it would look good. But that'll help to break up that space and make it feel like something's going on over there more than what you can really see in the image. And then you can just throw your little zigzags of grass along that line. Remember, this is the line that the grass would be growing behind or in back of, so you wouldn't want to erase it, you would just leave it. Making sure that these zigzags are getting smaller and smaller as they go back in space. I've got to add a little bit of the zigzags in that grassy area beside the curb. Now, if you feel like you need something to help the curb to feel more curby, then what you can do is maybe draw a area for water to go down when it rains. So we can draw two little straight up and down lines here. One that goes towards the vanishing point. That's the vanishing point on the right. And then we can show the hole going back into space towards the left. So this is just showing that it's going in there. And then if you want to, you can give it some little bars so that, children don't slip down there and get lost in the sewer system, I guess. I have seen students in the past put like little balloons coming out of there as if it's the clown from the, horror movie and novel It. So if you want to, you can have some additional fun with that. You can draw additional details. If you wanted to, you could draw clouds in the sky, for instance. So for clouds in the sky, I'm going to make the bottoms of the clouds go towards the right vanishing point. I'm going to draw these really light because I am going to be making them fluffy instead of just straight perfect lines. And as things get further away in space, remember, they get smaller and smaller, and further away in this case means closer and closer to the horizon. So as things get lower and closer to the horizon, they're going to be getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So our clouds are going to start big and fluffy up here. Try to make them look random. Try not to make the fluffiness look too patterny or it will look strange. Add a slight bounciness to the bottom. You can add some texture in the middle. All right, so we got some kind of epic looking clouds going on here. If I want to, if it feels like they're ending too close to the edge, I can line up my ruler with one of those old lines. I can continue them a little further. Maybe not every single one, maybe just some of them. So totally kind of your call about where you'd like to do things and how you would like to do them. As long as it works in 2-point perspective, you're good, man. You can have some lines that kind of go between some of those other ones, and that way the clouds have more different levels. But I decided that I wanted to add a few more clouds going off into the distance and maybe just a little bit of texture in the tree. So don't always kind of call things quits when you think that you're done. Look at it and just make a decision. Is it really feeling done, or does it need a little something more somewhere? So play around with ideas and don't always be satisfied the first time around. Have a great day.